Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Earlier this week, I did a video talking about how the SS Trunks Godsling technique ban is really going to shake things up in the Dragon Ball Super card game meta. And in that video, I mentioned I wanted to do a roundup video talking about all the boss cards that either you see a lot more breathing room or even a lot more meta playability options because of that ban, and that's what this video is going to be. I'm pretty sure this video we have more than 12 different boss cards to talk about, so quite a lot. But of course, this is not going to encapsulate every single card that is now going to become more playable as a result of the Trunks ban. So if you guys have any cards that you're playing or excited for, or that you think get a lot stronger with the Trunks ban, definitely drop them down in the comments so we can all see different ideas and all get cool new ideas for deck building going forward. But yeah, this is going to encapsulate the ones that I've found and that I've remembered from combing through the card database, and I think a lot of these get a lot stronger, maybe even meta worthy, but you know, time remains to be seen on that one. But anyways, if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys do want to help support the channel and you're looking to buy any of the cards we talk about in today's video, or any trading cards for that matter, it does really help me out if you were to use my link in the description to TCG Player. It is a free way to contribute to the channel if you're going to buy cards anyway, and I really would appreciate it. Anyways, let's jump right on into this. We are starting with possibly my favorite buff from the Trunks Godsling ban, and that is Great Ape Goku Full Moon Nightmare. You guys know that I love the yellow Goku reboot deck. I have a profile here on the channel that is from Nats. It was a build I was considering playing for Nationals, and I pretty much play that same exact build, but I'd add 1 or 2 copies of this now because Trunks is banned. This is the thing about this card. It was always best against blue decks, but blue had the best answer to this card in the form of God Sealing. When you play Full Moon Nightmare, you wipe the board of everything in rest mode, short of barrier unfortunately, but everything in rest mode. Field cards, unisons, battle cards. The fact this thing kills fields and unisons clears up some of my biggest problems in the game. I hate the Invoker deck. This thing destroys the Invoker deck. I hate Boo Unison. This thing destroys Boo Unison. It's so powerful. Definitely now a 2 of automatic staple, maybe a 1 of because your leader can search it in Kid Goku Reboot. That might be fine. But yeah, this card gets so much better. You probably don't even need to play Smoke Dragon in the deck because this thing kills, again, any unison. Like, it doesn't care about markers or anything like that. So yeah, this card gets way stronger as a result of the God Sealing ban. Then we have Fu the Dark Banisher, an overwhelm that any deck can play. If your deck lacks a boss monster, maybe you're playing an aggro deck, but you want some sort of option against the late game blue decks, Fu the Dark Banisher is your card. This card also seems very interesting in the new Supreme Kai of Time deck with the Zenkai Dash Pack support, because that leader allows this card to actually stick around. So it's like a 4-drop you just played and you paid the overwhelm cost, but it actually sticks around for multiple turns, taxing your opponent for when they activate effects. And this card just is like a fundamental killer for DBS. So what I mean by that is the fundamentals of DBS, the fundamentals of most card games require you to have more cards than your opponent and, you know, maintain your resources better than your opponent. That's generally how a lot of people win throughout card games. And Fu the Dark Banisher just taxes your opponent on everything. If they want to kill this card, they've got to pay cards to do so. And a lot of times, the cards that will kill this thing need to be played by a skill. So they're going to pay a card to play the card that'll kill this thing, and then pay another card to use the effect that will kill this thing. And that makes Fu the Dark Banisher so much stronger. You still do got to worry about yellow, because this guy coming in rest mode can sometimes be a big problem because you lose out on his triple attack. But if you have an already established board, which the Supreme Kai of Time deck can do pretty well actually, but also other decks you're playing might be able to do the same thing, this card is still going to be a force that your opponent is definitely going to have to worry about. Then we have Gotenks going all out, another one that I am actually personally excited for. This is the deck that I wanted to play in set 10, but I really just couldn't because Godsling was a thing and blue was really strong at the time. This is a really solid boss monster. The only thing it's missing is Deflect. And this is back to a time where we didn't have a ton of barrier removal, and this card actually offers that. It draws 2 cards on fusion. It's a solid, lineup of stats with double strike, dual attack, 25k, and the yellow Gotenks deck has gotten some new support through the recent anniversary box. So this might be a pretty cool one to go back and revisit. The only problem with that strategy is the leader sometimes is a little bit short on draw power because it relies on your opponent to actually use extra cards for you to draw additional cards. But if someone can find a way to make this deck work, and I might even take a crack at it, this is a boss monster that gets a lot stronger The other one unfortunate thing is this guy is a 7 cost, so he is just like right in the perfect range of being hit by Frieza charismatic villain, and green might be on the rise in terms of meta usage, but still, I mean, this is one that the shackles have been removed from now that God Sealing is no longer a card. Then we have Zeno the Playing God, one of the more toxic combos in the game's history. Chain Attack Zeno. This was actually already seemingly pretty decent. There were some builds of SS4 Gogeta that could actually play this pretty reliably. Now that Spaceship GT Goku has gotten some support, that deck can also potentially play Chain Zeno, whether it's in the main deck or side deck. And now, as a Chain Zeno player or for a Chain Zeno option, you don't have to worry about God Sealing and blue matchups stopping you from wiping their advantage. The one weakness of Zeno now, though, is that it doesn't actually remove Unisons, because Unisons weren't a thing when this card was printed. They probably weren't even an idea in Bandai's head when this card was printed. So your opponent might still be able to generate drawing advantage off their Unison depending on what Unison they're playing. But still, if you need a board wipe or your opponent's hand is just way too overwhelming, this card is now a lot stronger, since it's going to be a lot more difficult to actually stop its effect from going off. Then we have the Sin Shenron leader. So this is not actually a boss card, but this leader effect, the pay 6 to play 7 Shadow Dragons with different card names from your drop, was actually pretty weak to God Sealing. Against a blue deck that had a Unison up, you could go for the tap 6, and even if they God Sealing, you could think of it as like a draw 7 technically, but you'd of course rather have the board presence, right? The board presence is how you're going to pressure your opponent down and eventually win the game over the next turn or two. And now that that's no longer a thing with God Sealing being able to counter this, this leader does seem a lot stronger. There was a long time where Yellow Sin Shenron was quite meta, both in an aggressive version and in a mid-range control version, and it seems like it's kind of been phased out. One of the reasons I think that is because there's so much more removal for the 9-drop now, since that card is not getting as much value as it was maybe like last Nationals format and a little bit before that. Maybe it's still past the prime to be playing Sin Shenron, but this deck keeps getting new tools over time. It's even gotten a new card it could technically play from the Zenkai Dash Pack support. And again, this leader ability gets a huge buff from the God Sealing ban, so it is one that I know a lot of hardcore Sin players are going to be very, very excited about. So this one's kind of interesting, and this is SSB Gogeta Frenzied Burst. If you guys remember seeing deck profiles from around the time of Gen Con back in August, some of us were playing SS4 Vegeta Ramp, and we were teching this card because it was kind of just a win button against the super late game decks, and we would play this in the blue mirror match. But of course, what do we have to worry about? SS Trunks God Sealing technique. Now that that card is gone, we don't have to worry about actually killing our opponent's Unison to go in with this card safely. And if you are playing a ramp deck up against another control or stally mid-range deck, you basically have a tap 15 win condition that just burns 4 of your opponent's lives. So this is another card that gets a lot stronger. What's funny too is that this card's best applications are probably just not having anything to do with the actual evolve ability. Just pay 10 for it, and once you have 15 energy by resolving several SS4 Vegeta Rise of the Super Warriors, you can actually just win the game if your opponent is not playing a deck that applies a ton of pressure to you early on. Then we have Fuse Zamasu Divine Providence. If you guys are getting the memo here, there's a lot of D-Gen types of cards that get a lot stronger with God Sealing gone. But that's not to say these cards become broken, because, you know, red is still a good check to these super slow late game decks that just want to do burn damage to you. That is still something to keep in mind, and green's actually a pretty good check to a lot of these slower blue strategies too. But this is a card that technically gets a lot better. Basically what you're doing here is, when you play this card with Union, your opponent reveals their hand, you choose 2 cards from them, put them in their energy in rest mode, and the leader for this strategy will burn your opponent's life if they have a certain amount of energy. I forget how much energy they have, but this card is able to do that combo for the leader. And again, another boss monster out deflect, so this one does seem a little bit stronger. And it's so weird too, because I've always seen people like experimenting with this leader. Whenever a format seems like it might just be a little bit on the slower side, I do see people gravitate towards this strategy because it seems like an auto win button in some cases. But yeah, red is still a pretty good check to it, so if you can deal with the red matchup, maybe this is a deck that you can actually revisit and play. Then we have Whis, Judge of the Gods, a card that I really like. I like playing the Beerus Reboot deck, and this is like another pseudo SCR you can play alongside your SCR of choice, whether it's Gohan Beast or Kaioken Goku Divinity. This is a really cool card from set 1 that actually skips your opponent's turn. So in blue Whis, if you get to 12 energy, which is not that hard if you're not being pressured super early. But yeah, if you're playing Beerus Ramp, I 110% recommend playing 1 copy of this in your deck. It is just super free if you can actually resolve it. Then we have SS4 Gogeta thwarting the Dark Empire, which pretty much a Hachiac staple. Some Gogeta Zeno builds back in the day played it as an answer to the super slow late game stally decks, but yeah, another boss monster without deflect. This thing is going to immediately rip 4 cards from your opponent. And again, going back to the Flew the Dark Banisher slide, that's the fundamentals of Dragon Ball, right? If you can play a card that immediately -4s your opponent, you're in a really solid spot. So yeah, really cool boss monster to explore. The problem with black though is a lot of times it's either like super aggro or it's Hachiac. So where does this card fit besides Hachiac? I don't know. That kind of remains to be seen, but hopefully someone can kind of crack the code and figure it out. And then we have Frieza Armory Reborn. This one's a cool one to talk about because it's a budget SCR option for people who aren't able to shell out money for a card like SSB Vegeta, Unbridled Power. This card is actually pretty strong. It's a full board wipe, and it takes a card out of your opponent's hand, and it's Quad Strike. The one downside was it wasn't deflect. That doesn't matter anymore, so this is actually a really nice budget alternative for red players out there, so I'm happy to report on that. Rebelu, Demigras Secretary, another solid budget SCR option that is actually pretty powerful. For 2 energy, you play a 40k, and you get to play 2 battle cards from the warp. So you're generating a really nice board presence there, and in a black Overwhelm deck, like again, maybe Spring Hive time, wink wink, this could be a pretty solid SCR choice to go with. And then Evil Saiyan Malice Made Flesh. This is probably the best black SCR if budget is not a concern for you. The problem with black decks in the past has been if you happen to mill your SCR, which black decks generally revolve around milling your own deck. If you mill your SCR, you just weren't able to play it that game 9 times out of 10. But now this SCR says, please mill me. It's actually more advantageous if you mill this card rather than draw it. And this card is an absolute powerhouse. Doesn't have barrier, but if it did, this thing would be way too cracked because on play you get immediate value, burning a life, killing a battle card, taking control of one of their battle cards, and then every time they play a battle card cost 7 or less, you can just take it again until they're able to actually remove this thing. So yeah, this card way stronger with the Trunks hit. And now we'll start talking about cards that I've mentioned in previous videos. I wanted to save it to the end because I didn't want to not talk about them because they technically apply to this list, but I've talked about them already a couple times, so I kind of want to just breeze through them. Gohan, Beast SCR, might just now be the SCR for most blue decks since Godsealing was the main way to check this card in the mirror match. I still think Crimson can probably play SSB Goku Divinity, but this card certainly gets a ton stronger from the Godsealing ban, again, especially in the blue mirror match. Purge Force Cell, scary combo it can pull off turn 5. It can technically take your hand away, your entire hand for the most part. That is weak a little bit to a card like Smoke Dragon because half that combo revolves around a 2-cost unison, and you can also do some other cheeky things like in yellow you can play SS4 Goku, the one that makes your opponent pay 1 extra for extra cards. That can also delay this card's ability a little bit. You can also play Machika Board the Broken Seal, but without Godsealing being a thing, this does look pretty free on turn 5 against a lot of blue decks. SS4 Vegeta Rise of the Super Warrior, super staple in every single blue ramp deck. You no longer have to worry about your opponent having Godsealing in the blue mirror match. You just pretty much slam this for 6 and it's pretty safe. SSB Vegeta and SS Trunks Father-Son Bonds, a boss monster that seems worth revisiting now that the yellow Trunks deck is getting a Z leader that actually interacts with this card, and that is where we are wrapping up this video. So overall, hope we gave you guys some ideas for cards that are now a lot more playable with the Godsealing ban. If you guys have ideas for more bosses that are stronger because of the ban, drop them down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.